Can you take medicinal mushrooms? Most Candida protocols say remove mushrooms altogether, and I'm going to share with you my insight, which comes from a number of different researchers that actually really truly understand medicinal mushrooms and the science that bases their opinion upon that. Hey, just wanted to answer a very common question I get, which is those that are working on getting rid of Candida in the body, that imbalance of good bacteria, bad bacteria, the Candida albicans, the gut dysbiosis, great thing to address, really key, really important to balance that micro terrain within our digestive systems. And the question is, can you take medicinal mushrooms? Most Candida protocols say remove mushrooms altogether, and I'm going to share with you my insight, which comes from a number of different researchers that actually really truly understand medicinal mushrooms and the science that bases their opinion upon that. So my kind of just straight up right answer is yes, absolutely, you can take medicinal mushrooms. So we want to make a key distinction between what type of mushrooms are we talking about, because again, a lot of these protocols, there's just this blank statement saying no mushrooms when you have Candida. Now, the real key is what type of mushrooms. So within the fungi kingdom, we have all different kinds. We have single-celled yeasts, like Saccharomyces cerevisiae, right? The sugar-eating fungus, thing that raises our bread. That is something I would say to be avoided. So single-celled yeast, we're going to avoid those. And then most people are familiar with culinary mushrooms, things like white button, brown button. Hey, Tyrone, right on. Thanks for the mushrooms and the love there. So those types of mushrooms, your white button, your brown button, your average kind of grocery store mushroom, I would say we need to avoid those as well. And this is typically what recommendations are saying when they say avoid mushrooms. Those types of mushrooms are often grown, maybe not the best environments, and I'll explain in a sec when I talk about medicinal mushrooms, a key stage of life that they're in. So third category mushrooms that you can, I will recommend that you absolutely add in are the medicinal mushrooms. Now they are these higher forms of fungi that actually contain a lot of antifungal, antimicrobial, antibacterial, antiviral properties. And just imagine that they need to protect themselves as well, right? So they're higher form of fungus, they need to protect themselves from these lower forms of fungus, trying to break them down and decompose them. And in fact, they will often digest and consume lower forms of yeast and fungus for food. So they can be extremely beneficial. And if you think about these higher forms of fungus, again, antiviral, antifungal properties until they spore. And the spore is their seed. It's a reproductive cycle. So it's like everything else in life where it has this level of vitality until it reproduces. And a classic example is reishi mushroom. This is a perennial mushroom that every year flushes out new fruiting bodies. So the actual mushroom, the organism, is this mycelium underneath the ground or in through the fibers of trees, and then every year it will flush out a mushroom that is basically its reproductive organ. Now it is antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial until it spores, until it goes through that reproductive cycle. Then it gives itself up. Then you will see reishi mushroom rotting in the forest once it's gone through that cycle. But up until that time, it's in its own class. It has these properties that can resist that. Whereas your average brown button, white button, something grown in more of a commercial facility, once it's cut, it's kind of at the end of its life cycle, right? So it begins to decompose itself. Oftentimes the environment, especially the storage, the transport, it's susceptible to all kinds of other bacteria, funguses, and yeast that begin breaking it down because it's at the end of its life cycle. That you don't want to take in. But if you have a medicinal mushroom like reishi, as I've been talking about, that's harvested at its peak before it reproduces, it still contains that vitality. So it's harvested, it's dried, and all those properties are maintained in there. So I'm just going to reference a couple of other sources. We've got Mycomedicinals by Paul Stamets. Paul Stamets is everyone's fungal hero. He's been doing this for so many years. He's out as a real force of a voice of mushrooms, not only culinary, psychedelic, but specifically the medicinal mushrooms. And this book here is one that he wrote. I love this book because it's very, very small, right? You can just, like, it's a great, easy reference book. It's not too hard to digest, something you can really get to sink your teeth into and get a ton of value out of it. So he has actually in here, question number 10, and I'll just share the highlights. If I have yeast, Candida albicans, should I ingest medicinal mushrooms? He says, the scientific literature abounds with references showing that the metabolites of mushrooms produce natural antibiotics that fight Candida. Right? So there we go, natural antibiotics, that they produce that for themselves, and us as humans, we have this ability to absorb those. We're very similar to mushrooms, and we can use the chemistry of mushrooms, these antibiotic substances that they produce. They're effective in our body as well. Right on, Rosa, thanks for the thumbs up. So 1988 study found protein-bound polysaccharides from Ganoderma lucidum, that is our reishi mushroom that I've been mentioning, as just one example of a mushroom, activated macrophage activity, enhancing the elimination of Candida albicans. Since so many of the medicinal mushrooms enhance macrophage activities, a similar response is to be expected. In nature, mushroom mycelium, again, the body that's under root, these are like the thread-like substances that you see in the soil or a tree that's on the ground rotting down. That is the mycelium that uses yeast as a food source. All right, here we are, Sheila. This is Mycomedicinals. This might be backwards as you're reading it. An informational treatise on mushrooms, and that's by Paul Stamets. He's one of the great kind of herbal heroes of our day. He's written a number of books, including Mycelium Running, and definitely go ahead and look him up on YouTube for TED Talks. So Paul Stamets, TED Talks, fantastic guy, and ton of information on medicinal mushrooms. So that little excerpt right in the back in the appendix, he was mentioning specifically that Candida can be absolutely beat by these medicinal mushrooms because the reishi, they produce these antifungal, antibiotic-like compounds. Now, another fantastic author that I want to share with you is Robert Rogers. He is from Edmonton. He wrote the book called The Fungal Pharmacy, The Complete Guide to Medicinal Mushrooms and Lichens of North America. I know, again, this is a little backwards in your screen, but we have this one here at the Light Cellar. You can find it on Amazon. And look at that. Like, it's thick. It's very much a deep dive. Goes into all the different kinds of mushrooms. And again, if we look in the backs in the appendix, this is one of my favorite sections of these books. Both of them have fantastic appendixes where they show, and let me just give you a little insight into it, and then we'll dive deep, specifically related to our topic right now, medicinal properties. So he lists it out, and it's very in-depth. Paul Stamets is just a quick little glance, where this book, Robert Rogers, so medicinal properties, he goes through analgesic, antibacterial, antifungal, anti-inflammatory, all the way on through even to stress, vision, nerve tonic, immune tonic, and then every mushroom that has those properties, he gives it a little check mark. And what I want to show you related to our specific question today is Appendix E, antimicrobial activity, and right on there is the microbe Candida albicans. And then we start going down the list, and we can see that there's many mushrooms that guaranteed have shown scientifically to be excellent at fighting Candida. So right on, we had a few more joining us. Sunny Lord, right on, you're welcome. And Mira, thanks for the great info. When you showed the front of the book with the name and such, it shows backwards. I know, it's something to do with how it is with Facebook here and doing the live video. So the Fungal Pharmacy, I'll write it down in the comments once I'm done the video, and you can get it that way. All right, so Candida albicans. Again, if we look at Ganoderma lucidum, that's our reishi. Absolutely. We've also got maitake. We have the hericium. That's the lion's mane. We have some Lactarius species. What a little about Otramedes versicolor, that's our turkey tail. The way that Robert lists all the mushrooms is by scientific names. So some you might recognize, some you might not. But essentially all the ones that I did list off are a lot of the medicinal mushrooms that we carry for various brands. This one here is the 5 mushroom blend from Harmonic Arts. It contains it. And then the Mega Mushroom 16 mushroom blend. These are extracts, so these are really simple, easy to use. You can add them to your tea, your coffee, your smoothie, your juice, anything. I mean, this is exactly what you'd find in a bottle, like a capsules of mushroom extract, but it's in bulk. So you can use a lot more and just carry it in your purse, in your pocket. You're out, you're getting a tea, and then boom, just into hot water, into a tea, into coffee, and you've now upgraded it with mushrooms. And this can absolutely be a part of your protocol. If you're at home, if you like making teas, then we have the Reishi mushroom slices. This is the raw mushroom that you would then make your own teas and herbal extracts through alcohol and other preparations. That can work. Chaga, another good one as well, that has these compounds. So there you have it. If you got any other questions for me, just drop them down below. Hopefully I've answered that question and given you lots of other resources to explore and check out, because mushrooms, they're amazing, and there's not enough awareness yet. It's coming slowly, that of how different the classes of fungus is, right? We have our yeast, we have our culinary mushrooms, like our button mushrooms, and then we have these medicinals, and they're almost each in a category of their own. So when folks are going through and they're starting Candida cleanses, it's often listed, avoid all mushrooms. And we need to ask ourselves, well, what type of mushrooms, right? We need to make that distinction because they're all very different. So we need to avoid the yeast. We need to avoid those commercially grown culinary mushrooms, and even the wild harvested culinary ones, things like your morels, your chanterelles. I would probably, again, leave those off the table if I was dealing with Candida, and I would only focus on the medicinal mushrooms, ones that have been harvested kind of at that peak of their life cycle. They're vital, they're intact, they have all those antiviral, antifungal, antibiotic properties that they're producing for themselves to maintain the health of them. And if we harvest it, dry it, prepare it in that way, then we can benefit from their medicine, and that's the name of the game. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed. If you got any other questions, just drop them down below. I'm gonna write in the names and the authors of these books that I referenced, so you can begin to explore that a little bit more. And thanks again for tuning in.